Jason had always been cautious about moving on. Ever since his wife, Emily, had passed away 3 years ago, life had felt like a series of muted colors, a world drained of vibrancy. Raising their young daughter, Lily had become his sole focus, and even though he loved her fiercely, the nights were the hardest, quiet moments when he felt the weight of his solitude pressing down, reminding him of the laughter that once filled their home. Friends had gently nudged him toward dating, but he had always declined, fearing betrayal to her memory, fearing the awkwardness of replacing someone irreplaceable. Yet today felt different, not because he was ready, but because Lily's cheerful insistence had finally broken through. The last of his resistance. "Daddy, you need friends," she had said, tugging at his sleeve with an enthusiasm only 6-year-olds possess. "And maybe someone who likes ice cream as much as you." She had beamed, entirely oblivious to the complicated emotions brewing in his chest. And so, after some hesitation, Jason had agreed to meet someone, a blind date arranged by a friend who had assured him it would be casual. No pressure, just a coffee. He arrived at the quaint cafe, the autumn air crisp against his skin, leaves swirling in delicate spirals on the sidewalk. Nervous energy tickled his chest, a sensation he hadn't felt in years. As he scanned the room, he noticed her immediately, a woman sitting by the window, her profile illuminated by the soft golden light streaming through the glass. She had the same delicate curve of her jaw, the same gentle arch of her brow, and even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, it stopped him cold. Jason blinked, trying to shake the dissonance in his mind. There was no mistaking it. This woman looked like Emily. The resemblance was uncanny, almost impossible. He approached cautiously, unsure of whether to acknowledge the eerie familiarity or dismiss it as coincidence. "Hi, Jason," she asked, her voice melodic, warm, with a timbre that stirred something deep in him. He nodded, words failing him for a moment, and gestured for her to take the chair opposite him. They exchanged pleasantries at first, coffee orders, small talk about the weather, jobs, and hobbies, but Jason found his gaze drifting, studying every detail. The curve of her smile, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed. It was as if Emily had stepped out of memory and into the present. And yet, he reminded himself firmly that this was someone else, a stranger. Reality pressed itself against the edges of his heart like an insistent tide, warning him against indulgence in fantasy. As the conversation deepened, Jason learned her name was Rachel. She was a teacher, vibrant and kind, with a gentle sense of humor that reminded him so much of Emily's. They spoke about their passions, their struggles, the little joys that made life bearable, and slowly, the initial shock of resemblance softened into intrigue. Rachel had her own life, her own past, yet somehow, in the echo of Emily's features, Jason felt both comfort and confusion. He laughed more than he had in months, caught off guard by the ease with which conversation flowed, and yet, at the back of his mind, a flicker of guilt whispered. Was he betraying Emily even in thought? Or was it possible to honor her memory while opening his heart to someone new? The hour slipped by unnoticed. Rachel shared stories of her childhood, anecdotes that made Jason chuckle and shake his head in disbelief. And he found himself sharing memories of Emily, of the little quirks that had made their life together unique. He spoke cautiously, wary of letting grief spill over too heavily. But Rachel listened with genuine empathy, nodding, asking questions, validating the depth of his loss without judgment. There was something about her attentiveness, the way her eyes softened when he spoke, that drew him in despite the gnawing fear of familiarity. As they prepared to leave, Jason felt an unusual reluctance. Rachel smiled, sensing his hesitation, and suggested they meet again. Her suggestion was casual yet hopeful, and Jason realized he was nodding before fully processing the words. The walk back to his car was silent, filled with the crisp rustle of leaves and the quiet thrum of thoughts that refused to settle. He felt lighter, a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety, the heartbeat of possibility stirring within him. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked about his date with an innocent curiosity. "Was she nice, Daddy? Did she smile like Mommy?" Jason froze. caught between truth and the protective desire to preserve her memories. He simply smiled, kissing her forehead, and whispered, "She's wonderful, sweetie." In the days that followed, Jason and Rachel began to text, exchange phone calls, and plan casual outings. Each encounter was a blend of excitement and eerie familiarity, the reflection of Emily's features never far from his mind. Jason wrestled with his emotions, questioning the morality of attraction rooted in resemblance rather than true knowledge. Yet Rachel's personality, her warmth, and her laughter carved a separate space in his heart, one that belonged to the present rather than the past. He noticed small details, how she always asked about Lily, how her eyes lit up when the little girl recounted her day at school, how naturally she fit into a dynamic that had been dominated by absence and longing. Slowly, Jason began to recognize the fragile, exhilarating possibility of love again, a love that didn't replace Emily, but existed alongside her memory, a bridge between loss and renewal. And yet, every time he looked at Rachel, every time she laughed or brushed her hair from her face, he was reminded of the impossible coincidence that had brought her into his life. It was as if fate, cruel and kind in equal measure, had orchestrated this encounter to test the boundaries of grief and desire. Jason wrestled with denial and longing, guilt and hope, unsure whether the heart could navigate such a delicate, treacherous path without faltering. The memory of Emily was vivid, but so was the pulse of possibility that Rachel brought. And somewhere deep within, Jason realized that the story of grief was not a closed chapter but a continuum, where the past could be honored without constraining the future. Jason woke the next morning with a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, an unusual sense of calm, mixed with curiosity about what the day might bring. He tried not to read too much into it, but Rachel's kindness lingered in his thoughts like a soft echo. Later that afternoon, they met at a quiet park so she could spend a little time with Lily, who had insisted on coming along. To Jason's surprise, the two bonded instantly. Lily showed Rachel her favorite swing, proudly explained how high she could go, and even held her hand while pointing out squirrels racing along the trees. Watching them, Jason felt a warmth he wasn't sure he deserved, yet it was impossible to ignore. Rachel never overstepped, never acted like she was filling a role. She simply listened, encouraged, and smiled with genuine care. As they walked the winding path around the lake, Jason finally voiced the truth that had been pressing on his mind. He told her about Emily, not in a heavy way, but in a gentle, honest tone, explaining how the resemblance had startled him at first. Rachel didn't pull away or take offense. Instead, she paused, looked at him thoughtfully, and said she hoped the familiarity brought comfort rather than confusion. Her sincerity eased something inside his heart, something that had been locked away for too long. As the sun dipped behind the trees and Lily skipped ahead, Jason realized that life wasn't asking him to replace the past. It was offering him a chance to grow beyond it, with gratitude for what had been and hope for what might come next.